Alright, looks like I'm live. If anyone shows up here, let me know how it's going here, whether I'm good or not. My computer was being incredibly slow here about 2 seconds ago, so we'll see how well this works. The internet has been a little off and on today, so looks like it's live on my end. Okay, seems to be going fine. It's been a hot minute since I've live streamed. I don't think I've done one since like June at this point. Life's been really crazy for me. My wife and I had our third child at the end of July, so that's kind of course, been a big thing, and things have just been busy in general. So, but I figured I'd jump on real quick before the end of the year. I wanted to do a stream earlier after I released my last single last month, but didn't happen. So, but here we are. I'm here for the end of the year. Figured I'd just go through, just kind of hang out, and I'll go through my latest single, Paramnesia, and if you missed it, you can go check it out on the channel. We'll see how well my computer can handle the file. It's being a little slow at the moment, but we'll see how that goes. And if not, we just hang out and play some guitar. I thought it might be kind of fun to look through, since it's the end of the year. You know, you guys can let me know what music you've been enjoying this year. I thought it might be kind of fun to look through some of the videos I did this year, just to see how, to kind of review the whole year and look forward to next year. Let's see. I can play a few things from the newest song too, if anyone's interested in that. Let me see how this is working here, streaming wise. So if let's just solo the drum bass. Cool. That's working okay. It's working okay, at least with just those tracks on. Probably should have push some of these to audio files so they weren't so large for the sake of streaming. The computer can only handle so much when it gets to streaming. The plugins take up a lot of space. Let's see. I wonder if I can do that now. There's like certain plugins I have that will take up like a ridiculous amount of space, you know, or a CPU. If I have them on, so make sure I don't turn those on or maybe explode those to audio files. Though I bet if I solo stuff, it won't be a problem. All right, so I had the pleasure of having Jacob Umansky of Intervals fame on bass play on this song. I saw an ad he put up that he's available for some work, so I hit him up because I thought this would be a perfect song for him to play on. Really am a big fan of his playing. If you haven't checked him out, I'd highly recommend you do that. So he was incredibly professional and quick, obviously, about doing this kind of thing, because that's what he does. And I got his tracks, like, I don't know, a couple of days after I sent him the song. They sounded really nice. So we can take a look at his tracks first. I think would sound really cool. So here's his bass soloed. Here's that with just the drums. And there's two different bass tones on this song, really. So that's like the quote-unquote clean bass tone that I'm doing. And then there's a more distorted one. So those are the two main bass tones. What he sent me was just a bass DI track. So if I solo the bass DI, you'll kind of hear how it sounded before I did anything to it. Very quiet, probably. That's probably very quiet on your end. But it was a nice clear DI signal. I mean, when you're doing this kind of stuff, that's one of the best things to do is to record a DI signal. I always record a DI if I'm sending stuff to other people for them to mix or whatever. And in this case, he just sent me a DI, no processing or anything. I mean, I kind of was maybe expecting him to send some processing, but that's obviously wasn't necessary. So he sent just that raw track, and then I went through and kind of did the processing. So what I have first is like this bass DI track, which is basically just the low part of the bass all kind of combined together. It's just the really low end, like fundamental tones, and that I'll just blend in with the main signal. It's not really there too much. It's very kind of backgroundy, but that's there to kind of add a little bit of oomph on the bottom end of the mix, and that's there throughout the whole song. And then there's the clean and heavy bass. So the heavy bass, which is the main tone for most of the song. Let's see what I did here. Let's go to a part that has the heavy bass. Maybe like the weird thumping part. So compressor. That's just gonna kind of glue everything together dynamics wise. And that's not hitting super hard on the thumping part. It does on the louder parts, hits quite a bit louder. Some basic EQ. There's one note here in particular that I obviously really hated, that I notched out 20 dB, which I don't usually recommend notching stuff that far, but I think obviously there was something I didn't like there. I wonder if... Yeah, kind of a whistly frequency that with the thumping was coming through really loud, so I kind of notched that out. Then the main tone for the heavy bass is this, the parallax, which I'm actually using Jacob Umansky's preset, which I then kind of tweaked. He has a preset on here that I really like. I'll use it when I play bass too sometimes. So I have that on here, and then I just tweaked it a little bit. I don't remember exactly how I tweaked it, but... So there's the, without it. So that's providing a lot of well, it's providing most of the distortion, then of course a lot of the tone too. It's basically like the amp for the bass in this particular part. Saturn 2 probably did some more distortion. Yeah, distortion on the higher frequencies, just to kind of make the bass pop out even more. And then this plugin, which I've been a big fan of on bass, this is once it loads here. There we go, Double Tap, which is by Submission Audio. It's the same company that does the Umansky bass plugin, or all of the, well, a bunch of really good bass virtual instruments. I also have their limiter Flatline, which I use on mastering in combination with some other limiters. But this is basically a 2-knob compressor for bass specifically, just to control the low end. Fade. Let me go back a little bit here. Turn it off. And I don't have it hitting too hard. I don't like to get it into the yellow or red too much. Just it has the low compression and then all compressor. So the low compressor is a little bit higher to really control that low, and especially when the bass gets down in the super low drop A tuned area on the heavier riff. So that's all the processing on the heavy bass, and the processing on the clean bass is basically the same. It's just a little bit less extreme on everything. Let me loop this part here. Compressor, parallax. And this is the other Jacob Umansky preset from Parallax. So I have that. It's more of like a cleaner tone. I say clean, but it's still distorted. Cleaner, I should say, I guess. What did I do here? A little bit of... some more EQ. More EQ here. Wow, this is really extreme. A lot of these little movements I'm making in the context of the mix, right? I don't like to mix in solo. It's not usually a good idea. So any of these little things where I'm like, bring this part up or down a little bit is basically happening as I'm going along. Like this notch here at the upper part is obviously something I didn't like in the higher notes. And then past here, same sort of deal. Saturn again, double tap again. The double tap really helps on this cleaner bass to really control, because there's a lot of higher notes kind of happening, and notes just across the whole range of the bass in this particular riff. So and then at the end I put this Brainworks refinement plugin, which is basically gets rid of harshness overall. I like to use this. I use it quite a bit. I use it on like a mix bus too, or in a mastering situation. I don't have Soothe 2, which is by Oak Sound, which is kind of like the go-to for getting rid of harsh stuff now. But this is a very simple sort of one knob deal. Well, there's a couple knobs, but there's really one knob for controlling the harshness. So this seemed a little on the bright harsh side to me. So take, it's very subtle. What is it, 0.67 dB. But I have that just to control the higher kind of harsher frequencies a bit on the end. So really the bass processing is very similar. It's just that in one I'm using with different parallax settings with a lot more distortion. That's kind of the main difference. And then on the bass, overall bass bus, I have a little bit of, like I have a high pass, multiband compressor, which is another big one for bass. It's not really hitting much in this cleaner part, but when it gets to the louder part, later on, the heavier part, that's going to control, especially that low end. You know, I have it split up into 5 different bands here, and then just a limiter on the end. That's another way just to catch like some of the peaks. Compression is such an important part of bass. Well, of any part of mixing really, but I found on the bass especially to get sort of even dynamics across the bass, even if the performance is really good, which obviously it is in this case because it's Jacob Umansky. But to get that real control across the whole frequency spectrum, I got to do a lot of compressing in different ways. So there's, you know, kind of overall compression, there's multi-band compression, and there's, you know, and I'm not doing it all with one thing, right? It's not all with like one compressor controlling everything. It's like little bits here and there. And all of that's kind of adding up to more than, it's like adding up to the sum of its parts, right? To make something a little bit more involved. So we'll see how well my computer can handle this. We can do drums and bass together. And I actually did a lesson a couple weeks ago talking about programming drums, and I used this song specifically. So if you want a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the drum parts, you can look at that video. I can't remember what I titled it. It's like how to mix drums better or something like that. I don't know. Some sort of, you know, YouTube thumbnail, cheesy YouTube thumbnail and clickbait title, which you have to do, unfortunately. But the drums and bass, let's take a look at maybe this weird thumping part. Up. Let me bring in the guitars on that because that's an important part of this particular riff. Attempt to play some of this. So I'm using kind of my what I call fake thumping technique. Actually, I have a whole lesson I did on that last year, and there's also a big lesson I did on the rhythms from this song too, which is like the weird. It's like a time signature within a time signature, especially in that later part. Jacob is doing. Sounds better than, well, yeah, of course it sounds better than my old bass recordings because it's not me playing. No, yeah, definitely. And actually, it's interesting you say that because when I go to record bass on my own for whatever I do next, there's definitely some things from this that I'm going to take, hints that I'm going to take from this. So one of the main things is just to have less distortion overall. I think in some of my earlier recordings when I was recording bass, like I liked having a lot of distortion on the bass, but it kind of like lost some definition. So this here has a really nice balance. I mean, a lot of it is the playing, obviously, because Jacob is hitting really hard on all this stuff, which really helps. And he's got a great bass and just kind of a great setup in general. But you know, I think some of it is that I could have overly distorted this very easily, and that probably would have taken away from it. And I wanted more of the note definition, right? Bass is a weird instrument because it's incredibly important. If you mute it in a mix, like the mix falls apart, you know, in a song. But also sometimes you don't necessarily want it to be heard too much on its own, you know what I mean? A lot of times it's something that's going to blend in with guitars and drums. So it's kind of like finding that balance of like where can the bass stick out and kind of add to the whole, and where can it be its own thing. So some of that is writing too. So these parts are written in such a way where the bass is kind of a featured instrument and not because I thought Jake was going to play on this song, because I didn't, because I wrote this song before I even asked him to play. I think I was going to record it originally. But kind of figuring out, like, you know, where the bass needs to kind of pop out. Let me see if I can find the right sound. I don't remember exactly what tone I used for the guitar here. That'll work. Turn off the delay. See if I can remove the faster part. Haven't played this guitar in like 10 days. I was out of town for the holidays. Got back from Alaska yesterday, actually. So if I'm a little out of it, that's probably why. That was I'm prepping for a gig. I have a New Year's Eve gig tomorrow, so I need a little break from that. That's why I'm live streaming right now. That's it, slowly the faster part. Anyway, it's super hard to play. I haven't played it since I recorded it, really. But that's the part there. So I'm doing the fake thumping, which is basically just hybrid picking. And then he's doing the real thumping. So I mean, I could solo just the guitars. Might be interesting to hear. Actually, that's using more distortion than I thought. More like that kind of sound. There we go. It's a very bright sound. So I'm using like a split coil thing. Anytime I try to do the thumping, or in my case, like the fake thumping thing, I'll do the split coil type of a deal. And then I think in the mixing side, I definitely would like boost a lot of that sort of the top end, so you get that attack. And that in combination with the bass, you know, the bass and guitar together. It's funny when I solo it, like there's quite a bit of sound actually, sort of extra ringing string noise, especially in the guitar, but even in the bass too. So the performances aren't like 100% pristinely clean, but honestly, like when you in the context of the mix and the drums are there and you have some of the other higher instruments, you don't even hear that kind of stuff. So you can go overboard, I think, on the editing of things. And I definitely did do a lot of editing to get this part sounding nice and crisp, but you know, I don't. It's a little bit of the. You can even hear when I play it there. Like there is some like little like ringing sounds here and there. But definitely easier to do that part there with a little bit of distortion. So basically, it's either I'm going between my pick and my middle finger, or I'm doing like a 3-note roll, so it's pick, middle, ring. So if I do it slowly, it's like pick, middle, ring, pick, middle, pick, middle. So there's a group of 3, 4, which I just do pick, middle, and then 3 groups of 3, which is more of the rolls. And this is basically a banjo roll. It's kind of where I originally learned to do that. Okay. So I never thought that learning banjo rolls would help me in writing progressive metal, but that's the pattern. 3, 4, 3, 3, 3. Alright, like that. It's a fun part to play, actually, once you get it down. Really tricky, though. It would be hard to execute cleanly in a live situation. Definitely takes some practice. Imagine if Tosin played. Well, yeah, it'd probably sound way better if Tosin played it. It would actually sound like thumping as opposed to what I did. I need to sit down and actually learn how to thump properly. Like I've done it a little bit. Like at one point I sat down for a few hours every day for a few days and was like, yeah, I'm gonna learn how to do this, and then life got in the way. So, and it's such a cool technique. But a lot of thumping stuff to me ends up sounding very similar. So it's like I could write some cool stuff with it for sure. But I just feel like I'd be ripping off some other people if I did that. Anyway, and this is the quote unquote fake thumping thing. It's a little bit of a different sound. It might be quote unquote original to me, which I'm sure it's not, but I've kind of figured out a way to make it work. I've actually tried to play. I need to do it again. I've actually tried to play some Animals as Leaders thumping sections with my like fake thumping technique. Like I was trying to learn the woven web. I actually tabbed it out and everything. Maybe I'll try that later if anyone's interested in seeing me try to do that. I was gonna get it up to speed and actually play it. It sounds a little bit different, but it's pretty cool actually. And I was able to pull it off. It required some little, not changes to the notes, but just some changes to the pattern. Like obviously I can't do it exactly how Tosin would do it because I can't do a group of 5 while I'm holding the pick. I can only do a group of 3 really. So the 5 ends up being like a combo of a couple different things, but yeah, anyway, maybe I'll pull it. I know I have that somewhere. I'll pull it up. I was going to do that and make it as like a short video. That part's hard enough to play on with real thumping. It was a real pain to try to do it the other way, but it was a fun little experiment. Anyway, yeah, so that's the bass and guitar together for that part. Not really too much else to say on that. Then it goes to this heavier riff here. I do not remember how to play this one. Computer's gonna me. I can't really play all the instruments at the same time because my computer can't handle it right now. Let's see if I remember how to do this. There we go. And actually on that part I do more of the like fake thumping thing with mutes, but it's so distorted you can't even hear it. In final recording it just sounds like, which is fine, but that's the hard part. It's an octave tap. A. Something like that. Yeah, the woven web is I don't know, it's one of my favorite Animals as Leaders song. I know it's probably cliche because it's a lot of people's favorites. I just love the grooves on that. Obviously the one thumping groove, but there's all those, you're right, the tapping lines earlier are really cool, and there's the cool heavy riff afterwards, and I think it's one of there's good like melodies in that song too. Some of my problems with Animals as Leaders ends up being where it's like it's so technical sometimes or experimental that losing, like there won't be melodies to latch onto in a lot of places. Doesn't do that though for me. It's definitely one that works really well. Big fan of that song. But it is very obviously. KFO, yeah. KFO's a classic too. I can't. It's been a while since I've played that. I used to know how to play at least parts of KFO. It's been a minute. The one thing that I always remember is from. If I can do it without a fret rap too well, but it's from Tempting Time. It's a really cool one. I really love that kind of crazy floating tapping with the weird rhythms. That's a good one to pull out at sound checks. I always pull that one at like sound checks for, top 40 cover band gigs, something like that. It's a good time. The tapping stuff, I have no problem doing that. I mean, I've spent a lot of time tapping, so I have learned, I've learned a few of the Animals as Leaders like tapping bits that I thought were really cool. All this stuff that if I haven't played it in a long time, it goes like in one ear and out the other because there's so much going on, so much different music going on in my brain. So as you can tell, I can't even. It's true. I wouldn't say it's their most popular though. And this is KFO might be actually. If I looked up Animal Leaders on like Apple Music or Spotify, what their top song. Oh, it's probably like Physical Education, the one I really like. I'm curious now. I was right. Physical Education. At least this is on Apple Music. I don't know about Spotify. Then Tooth and Claw. The Wove and Web is those KFO. I don't know. It's. I don't really. I have no problem saying I like something if it's popular. If you like it, you like it. And typically things. Well, it's not always the case, but a lot of times things are popular for a reason. Yeah, let's look at some. So that's kind of like a lot of the riffs and bass and drums on here. Now there's a lot of kind of backgroundy, like spacey stuff I did in this song, which I have been experimenting with. Physical Education on Spotify, yeah, I figured as much. I was kind of experimenting with some soundscape type stuff on. I think in the final mix it ended up not coming through. Maybe as I wanted to, but there is like the whole middle section that gets really spacey in the song, and then there's some parts. If I had these in buses, beginning to, so I can just solo some of those. Oh no, we got the spinning wheel of death. There it is. Physical Education's a cool one too. I want to learn that rhythm. It's like it's in 4/4, but it's a really cool combination. Rhythms side of the 4/4, which is cool. 6. There's like 6 and 7s in there, or maybe it's like 5s and 6s. Maybe I should do another Leaders analysis video. That's still my biggest video on YouTube is the monomyth analysis. Physical Education is the most popular. Oh, it's loading. My computer's wondering why I'm trying to do so much stuff at once. There we go. No, it's still loading. Gosh. Well, this may be a short-lived experiment here. Come on, you can do it. Never had this many issues streaming, because I haven't streamed for a while. It's probably tested a little more. Jumped on. You can do it. Oh, there we go. Nope, nope. Spinning wheel of death. Oh. If anyone, let me know your favorite albums from 2022, if you have any that you've heard this year. There's been a few that have come. I haven't gotten to listen to as much music as I wanted to. I've been really enjoying Whoa by a band called Definitely on the heavier side. Really good. BS to stream. I typically don't have a problem. I don't know. It's the streaming that's screwing. It's in my DAW and studio. I have too many plugins on this session. I should have printed some of these to audio. I usually do. I didn't really have time to do that before I jumped on, unfortunately. It's just, what it's doing is just like saving. There we go, yeah. It was just saving everything, and that's why I was getting the wheels, like the wheel of death. There we go. So here's all the keyboard and like effects buses. Really cool. This is like a main one, this sort of crystallized sound. Apparently I can't play that in solo. Let me try some real quick here. So this is the very beginning of the song. It's basically holding this chord that gets played in the clean guitars, which is this chord with an A in the bass. It's like an A6-9 basically. A major 7 with a ninth. Actually, I guess it doesn't have the 6th. It's A major 9, like a cool voicing for it. Like at the beginning, I picked that. Cool voicing. Actually, you move that up 3 frets later in the verse. Sometimes just moving a cool shape around like that can make some really interesting sounds. So basically this is just, I can't remember exactly, this may have been a preset from Massive or something I kind of built. It's kind of just holding that chord. And I have it like pan a little bit and swell. Got that crystallized sound in there. And then there's another pad that goes along with it. That one's incredibly quiet, you can barely hear it. And that kind of fades in there at the beginning. And then I have piano, which doubles the guitar part. I want to say I was using the Noir piano from Native Instruments for that one. I really like that for the softer kind of stuff. And then another big instrument in this song, actually, which ends up playing a lot of the melodies and stuff along with the guitar, is the music box. Yep. The music box. I think this is a free music box one that's part of the Spitfire Labs series. If you're interested in virtual instruments, Spitfire Audio, which does a lot of really good high-end stuff that you can pay for, but they also have a free series called Labs. They're smaller instruments, and there's dozens of them you can get for free. And I use those all the time. This one, I think there's a few other of those, their plugins on here too, but the music box is from the Spitfire Labs. So like it does a harmony there to the main lead guitar. So it kind of comes in and out certain spots. That ended up being kind of a major sound that I used throughout this whole song, even in the faster like second verse part. Here, that music box is part of that entire sort of lead section in the second verse. So that plays a lot of melodies and stuff throughout. And then more of this soundscape stuff. This really starts to take shape in the bridge part here, or the middle section. That's really cool on its own. There's other stuff happening on top, so that kind of gets maybe pushed back a little bit in the context of the whole song, but because there's also strings and pads kind of all happening along with that too. The main sound there is doing, well, this is all in A Phrygian, this whole spacey section. It basically just kind of holds right within that mode. I think it's this main higher one. Does a lot of these, get the dissonance like it does A to B flat. A lot of those half-step dissonances. And the sort of swelling lead guitar that takes the forefront. I do a lot. Kind of leaning into those half-step dissonances within the Phrygian or Phrygian dominant kind of sound. As well as the it's like a go-to sound if you're doing spacey stuff is to get some dissonance. Oh yeah, that's also another lick I do in there. That's a fun one. Ah. There it is. Basically, you plug a note, play a note, half step below it, and do a really quick, like a Kodo technique kind of thing. All those half step bends, they sound really gnarly and you know, quote unquote exotic. And then I swell into a lot of like the bends too. Some of the swelling I actually kind of automated in. Let's see if I can find that lead guitar. That's without any effects on it. Oh yeah, yeah. Thin sound. And I basically just improvised the little lead parts there in this whole spacey section, and then I took bits that I liked and kind of stringed them together into something that kind of worked with the song overall. I didn't want it to like bury the things underneath, so there's a lot of space. Kind of just adding to the spacey vibe of this whole section. This effects sound here is cool. And I have that pan back and forth as well as swell in and out in sections, just kind of like brings in some of that flavor. I don't remember what this one does. That's very much in the background. This low pad is just kind of hanging out on A. I think it's an octave down below. But it has some higher overtones that sound really cool. Yeah, it's fun. This was fun to put together. It's just kind of fun to find like random sounds. Oh, my personal favorite. This actually happens twice in the song, but first it's going into that thumping section. It goes. I don't even remember where I got this. It was like a free little library of sort of sound effects, you know. Oh, I think it's Epic trailer like sound effects. So for, you know, movie trailers and stuff. And I kind of shortened it to the right length and had it end really quickly, but if you listen, that actually comes up in the mix of the song fairly loudly. You can hear the into the thumping part. Right. It kind of just made that move into that part really intense. So like that actually happens halfway between the last chorus too. There's no drums playing right now. Let me unmute the drum bus. Where is it? Oh, that's why it's not working. Yeah, where is that part? There it is. So that comes in and kind of swells that part there. It's kind of fun to add those little sounds here and there. I think they bring a lot into the song. And then there's multiple pads holding too. as well as strings. Really just kind of hanging out on the one chord, the A as the root, but it's just adding the extra flavor there. It was fun to do that. I think I hadn't planned for this song to be a full song originally. I was going to have it just be like a couple minute demo type thing for something, but I ended up writing and really kind of enjoying what was going on, so I expanded it, and I had the idea to throw in this like spacey middle section. You know, my music is typically fairly dense and involved, and while this is still all in 11/8, it's not exactly like simple, but I think it adds a lot of dynamics to the thumping part that happens afterwards for it to be really quiet here. You know, that contrast of that slow build, you know, kicking into that thumping part. How do I know? Well, I mean, with this kind of stuff, you can, in a section like this, I probably could have added like more and more, and you wouldn't even have noticed. Because, I mean, some of these are so far pushed back in the mix, it doesn't really matter. And a lot of them end up doubling parts too. You know, I think some of these, this piano and pad here, I think, for instance, are doubled. And then they get doubled again by another guitar. So there's a lot of like doubling. And then for this, I kind of just was exploring sounds that I thought sounded cool. And if I liked it, I'd bring it in. And if it felt weird to me, I'd get rid of it. If it worked, I'd try to put it in the mix how I liked it. So I found all the sounds I wanted. Then I printed them to audio. And then when I got to the mixing stage, I kind of figured out which ones I wanted to be more present, and for some of the other ones, like, you know, how much do I want to pan it back and forth? You can get really extreme with this. What is there, like 40 tracks in this song? I mean, I've seen people's sessions with, you know, 200 tracks or whatever, sometimes on songs. So it can get way more involved than this, but all this stuff was enough for me to kind of make this part feel different. It's also fun to do parts of the songs like this for me that aren't guitar led. Where like when I did this part, I didn't have my guitar with me. I'm just sitting down, like, you know, with the virtual instruments and my little keyboard controller, and just trying to figure out the sounds. And it's fun to not think so much from a guitar perspective. You know, there's some cool guitar stuff in this song. There's some cool riffs and leads and stuff, but yeah, I'm much more focused kind of on the overall songwriting as a whole. But it's fun to layer. I love layering stuff. That's something I've really gotten into. Another thing I've been experimenting with a lot recently, in some of my newer music, hopefully you'll hear it, is doing sort of more on full-on orchestral kind of stuff. You know, movie soundtrack, video game soundtrack type of thing. Because I had the experience of writing for those kind of instruments from music school. And I have a lot of friends who do like video game composing and stuff. So I'm hoping there's some of that on my next album, which is I've already written, which won't be out for a while, but I'm excited to kind of explore some more in that realm, because it's something I really enjoy doing. I find it's super fun to kind of like figure out, like, you know, where all these instruments going to go here and there. And this is in a different vein, but it's kind of the same deal. It's like trying to figure out how to layer all this stuff on top of each other. It helps when there's no drums either. The fact that I made sure the rhythm instruments cut out here, that left a ton of space for all these layers, you know. If the drums and bass were still playing, or rhythm guitars, then it becomes almost impossible to kind of keep all these layers in there without it just becoming a huge mess. So like when the drums and bass do kick back in the thumping part, like most of the soundtrack stuff or the soundscapey stuff goes away. So it happens at the beginning. The soundscape stuff happens in this long middle section, and then a little bit in this little space between. Like in that part before the main melody kicks in. So I had to, you know, for those parts to be there, I had to write those parts specifically to not be like jam-packed with drums and bass and guitars. That's really the best way to be able to get all those layers in and have them kind of work. When you start layering stuff with Rock Band, then it gets really tricky from a mixing perspective and from a writing perspective. Like a lot of those, I love like orchestral metal, like symphonic death metal and stuff like that. But some of that stuff can get so buried because you're trying to like cram a full orchestra, which covers all of the range of frequencies, with the Rock Band, which also covers all the frequency ranges. So it's really hard to like make those things blend together well. So like a lot of these lower instruments, all these low pads and stuff, like that, none of that is happening when the drums and bass are playing, because it would just muddy up the entire thing and make it really hard to tell what's going on. So you got to figure out where you want each of the instruments to live within, from a composition perspective, where you want them to live range wise, but also where you want them to live within the mix too. They kind of work together, right? So it's from a mixing perspective, it's hard to polish a turd. If it's poorly written to begin with, it's gonna be hard to mix. But as I've gotten a little bit better at mixing, I do think about that when I'm writing. So I'm always thinking about like, this is cool to have all these different parts here, but is it gonna work when I get to the point of mixing it? Like, is it gonna become way too much, to have all these instruments playing at the same time, or will it make sense within a mix? Will this part even be heard? Sometimes that's the case too. It's like you write a cool background figure. It's like, is that going to come through in the mix at all? Sometimes no is the case. And when that happens, I'll just get rid of it, won't keep it. Or you have to make decisions on the mixing side. Like, are you okay with certain parts not being heard or barely being heard? We had some of this when we did the Sense of Gravity album too. It was like, there's two parts here, at least with one of the songs I wrote, I remember there's too many things going on and they were all cool. But the guy who was mixing it was like, okay, do you want to hear these vocal stabs here more? Or do you want to hear this like fast guitar part? And we had to decide, what made sense. So I really think about that stuff as I'm writing too. It's like, is this going to be heard? If I write this, is it going to be heard? Or am I going to have to cut it, or I'm going to have to bury it so far in the mix that you don't hear it, which is the case with some of these background figures, which I don't really care about too much. Is more for the sort of like ambiance of this whole sort of section. But there are certain things where I'm like, yeah, I can't, I purposely try to bring up certain instruments in certain spots if I really wanted them to kind of come through. Not really too many other instruments here to talk about. A lot of the other stuff is doubled. Oh, soft piano. That is another one of those Spitfire Labs instruments. Really nice. Sounds great. It's kind of that classic sort of muted piano sound that's you hear that sound in like so many TV soundtracks and movie soundtracks now. It's like a overdone sound, but kind of layering that with, I think I layered that with the other piano, and they kind of creates a nice sound combined. I have a couple lead synths too that basically play the melody along with the electric guitar. Like there's where's the crazy fast lead part? I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, it's like this solo part in the middle. It's like lead synth, guitar, and music box. Yeah. I think I was maybe originally going for like a Pliny-esque vibe or something like that on that part, but it ended up being way notier than that because that's how I write. But yeah, I love the sort of layers of synth and guitar. That's like classic prog, kind of combined stuff. I don't know if I can even play any of that, but. I'm already holding a pick, and I had a pick in the guitar. What's that part? Ah. Something like that. I don't remember. Tricky parts to play. And there's like that fast run at the end. Haven't played electric guitar in like 10 days, so I'm gonna call that good. Anyway, so there are a few other layers kind of here and there, bringing parts up. Yeah, I mean, there's not really too much else to talk about this song. It's really just a couple sections. You have like the choruses, the big sort of epic choruses, the spacey section, the whole thumping riff part, and the verse. That's basically it. For me, it's a pretty short song. It's 4.5 minutes. Well, maybe it's 4 minutes 20 seconds. Very short for me. I know this might be a long song by some people's standards, but it's a really fun one to put together. And I wish I could play more of all the parts together on here, but my computer's not going to let me. I'll make sure I do a little more testing before I live stream next time. I'm planning on doing more consistent live streams going forward, hopefully. I took a long break from doing them. When I first started the Prog School a couple years ago, I was doing like every week. I'm not going to do that. Just don't have the time to do it, and it doesn't really make sense. But I'm going to try to do a monthly live stream at least, I think. If there's certain things that you would like to see from a live stream from me, please let me know. If you want me, certain things you want me to break down or talk about, techniques, certain songs, whatever, I can do whatever anyone wants for a live stream. These are kind of just, all of my other videos are so structured. It feels like it's nice to do something that's just kind of loosey-goosey, even though, I'm not the most comfortable just talking randomly. But anyway, I'm hoping to do a little more consistent kind of live stream deal. I might do some live streams with some other people too. I've done that in the past. Thought that could be fun. I did a few last year with some other, musicians. If people find that interesting, to bring different perspectives in. Yeah. So if you haven't checked out this song, Paramnesia, it's up on all the streaming services, and there's video and playthrough video on the YouTube channel, and it's all on my Bandcamp if you want to purchase it. I have tabs available too if you want to try to learn some of this stuff, guitar tabs. So anyway, I guess I'll have a good new year, and I'll see you all in 2023.